Welcome to tonight's workshop. I find that sleep is a hot topic. I think we're all striving to have better sleep and look for the things that we can do to support better rest. Because as we'll get into the workshop tonight and just the research around the importance of sleep, I think we'll all have a bigger desire to get better rest. So let's just jump right in here. Doesn't this guy look so pleasant? Oh, I just want to lay outside in the ground and look up at the sky. Okay, so this is from Sleep Smarter, and this is all the research that was provided in that book around improved sleep. So if we are sleeping, that means we have better skin health. We have a more youthful appearance. Better emotional regeneration, better relationships, better longevity. We have decreased risk of stroke and cardiovascular disease, fewer accidents. That makes sense, right? Because we're not on the road tired and we don't miss signals or miss signs. So fewer accidents, decreased pain, stronger bones, lower levels of inflammation, enhanced function of the immune system, lower risk of cancer and infection, better hormonal balance, faster rates of weight loss, lower risks of Alzheimer's disease, cognitive decline, and better memory. All if we have improved sleep. Who would have thought that sleep is attached to all of those things? And really a hot topic, I think, is as more research is coming out, is how it relates to Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. So I think we could all do well with having better sleep. So let's talk about the main sleep drivers. Now we have natural internal processes that work together to keep you awake when you should be awake and to support your sleep when you should be sleeping. You have the homeostatic sleep drive, which is the pressure for sleep that builds up the longer you're awake. So the way I like to explain this, and this was explained in, I gotta look up this book so you guys can have the resources because I didn't put it on there. The Sleep Prescription, which is 7 days to unlocking your best rest. So how it was described is when you wake up and you were alert and you're ready for the day, this homeostatic sleep pressure is like a balloon. So your balloon is totally empty. And as you go throughout the day, as life adds and stresses you, that balloon will start filling up. And if you take a nap or if you get a quick shut-eye, what happens is it takes a little bit of pressure out of the balloon. So at the end of the night or at the end of your day, your balloon is totally inflated, and that is the homeostatic sleep drive. When it's totally inflated, that is the internal drive that indicates it is a trigger for rest. And then you also have the circadian rhythm, which is your master clock that governs the rhythm of all your body processes, including sleep and wakefulness. So these two work together to create the internal clock for our sleep and wake cycle. Okay. So, and when that balloon is totally full at the end of the night, that's also going to trigger your circadian rhythm to help with that master clock. So let's just talk about that homeostatic sleep pressure. It's hooked to certain neurochemicals, which are byproducts of brain activity. And that's specifically adenosine, which is the energy source for all living cells. So if anyone has taken any type of science course, if you ever heard of ATP, that is the energy that your cell produces that allows for all cell processes to take place. So really an important neurochemical. When you are awake, that adenosine builds up in the brain, and when you're asleep, it drains it away, or drains away from the brain when you're sleeping. So you have this hormone that ebbs and flows. When there's a lot of it, it brings a lot of energy and alertness, and when it drops down, it allows for the brain to settle down. So as an example, when you look at caffeine, the most common way people use in terms of chemical to keep themselves awake, it works to engage adenosine. It actually fights with adenosine and receptors in the brain, so it doesn't allow for that adenosine to drop down to allow for you to go to sleep. So it keeps that adenosine high in the brain, but that'll cause problems later on. A lot of times we have crashes after that. If we look at your circadian rhythm determines your alertness rhythm throughout the day. So it's oftentimes your alertness spikes high in the morning, it dips in the afternoon, rebounds slightly, and then wanes slowly throughout the evening. But your circadian rhythm is your master clock. Typically, when you look at how the circadian rhythms were back when we had the sun only to provide us with what we knew as daytime. I mean, we were very much in routine with the Earth's rhythm. When the sun came up, we were up. And when the sun went down, we went down. And then things changed when fire came around. We had fire to keep us up later. We had light. And then certainly things have shifted greatly with light, and even more so with technology, screens, phones, that sort of thing. So circadian rhythms are, there are many factors tied to your rhythm, but light is a big one. And so the way our body is triggered to be awake or for sleep is light exposure or the lack thereof. And so with just more wakefulness and more access to screen time, lights, it really confuses the rhythm. It also, there's internal components to your circadian rhythm. So I found this fascinating, which are shaped by your genes and proteins. So you can pass down your circadian rhythm. So if you tend to be a night owl, we oftentimes see that is a genetic expression that's passed down from previous generations, versus if you were an early bird, we can see that is passed down. So that's where, it can be really challenging to change your sleep habits or become a morning person, depending on how ingrained that genetic expression of that circadian rhythm, it can be more challenging. And when we're talking about rhythm, I wanted to share this. I thought it was fascinating. When it comes to sleep, I think the biggest thing and biggest word you should be thinking about is rhythm. What is contributing to the rhythm of life, of when you are awake and when you are asleep? But it says, this is from, again, the sleep prescription. Let's compare humans to some of our fellow companions on this earth. Giraffes sleep for less than 5 hours across the 24-hour day, while lions spend an amazing 16 to 20 hours resting or sleeping over that same period. The albatross, an enormous airplane of a bird that can travel 10,000 miles in a single journey, can achieve REM sleep while in flight. And hippos, they sleep underwater unconsciously, surfacing while sleeping in order to breathe. And even flowers have an internal clock coded into their cells that tells them when to open and close. And for many other organisms, there is a sleep rhythm. And so I share that because when you go and are part of Mother Nature, there is a rhythm that is natural. And the more we create this unnatural rhythm, the more it shifts us out of a natural state, And I'll go back to, Alzheimer's, and you look at declining with age and not having healthy skin and having dysregulated emotions and relationships. I mean, that is not normal. I mean, normal is to be very vitalistic and expressive in your health. You look at some of these societies, these blue zones, where you see a lot of people reaching 100. Say, well, we study these blue zones. What is it about these cultures? What are they doing right? Or you have these monks who live, isolated in these monasteries. What is it about these regions or these cultures or this community that is allowing for longer age, don't see as much chronic disease. And I think there's a rhythm and a connection to what's very natural. So our way of living is very unnatural when you look at just life, stress, light, and what we're exposed to. So there's the internal component that can really impact your circadian rhythm. And then there's the external component. So that is light, your exposure to light. That is your stress level. There's multiple factors that can really impact your circadian rhythms. For example, this author talked about how a mom of 2 kids lived in a neighborhood that was really unsafe. Shootings were happening more frequently. And so she would stay up at night to make sure her kids were safe. And that really impacted her circadian rhythms. And that's an extreme example, I think. But depending on your stress levels at work, or if you feel safe in your environment, whether it's perceived safety or actual safety, that impacts your ability to rest and sleep and regenerate. And then, as with your daily routine, and we're going to get into some of the sleep tips that we have as far as what you can do to really have better sleep. But before I go there, what happens while we're sleeping? When we are awake, I want you to think about it as a catabolic state, meaning it breaks you down. Everything we do when we are awake is breaking down the body. And so sleep is an anabolic state which builds you up. In an elevated anabolic state, it heightens the growth and rejuvenation of the immune system, skeletal and muscular systems. Sleep rebuilds and keeps you youthful. When you have sleep reduction, you can literally think of it as brain drain. Your parietal and prefrontal cortex. So your prefrontal cortex is all executive function. That's why it takes us a year to get our stuff together to walk, because our brain is developing and we got to get to these outer regions. You have a kitten who, they are born and immediately they need to be walking and moving. Well, it takes us a year to get there, or sometimes 14 months or 16 months. Why does it take so long? Because our brain is developing and starting to develop these outer portions of the brain, which is all executive function: focus, memory, concentration, your ability to perceive pain, emotional regulation. So your parietal and prefrontal cortex lose 12 to 14% of their glucose when they don't sleep, meaning they're not getting the nutrition they need to function. Important areas for thinking, distinguishing between ideas, social control, and being able to tell the difference between right and wrong. So you can see that this can really be impactful if we are a society who is not getting rest, not recovering. Furthermore, there's something called this glymphatic system, which is super cool. So we always know of the lymphatic system, which is pulling and making sure that fluid is not pooling in any areas, and it's constantly circulating and getting dumped into the kidneys, and we've got this fluid control. Well, there's this glymphatic system, which is the brain's disposal system. Basically, when you're sleeping, this goes into hyperactivity. I mean, it's 10 times more active than when you are awake. And your brain cells actually reduce in size by 60% to allow this system to do its job. So the glymphatic system, its job is to get rid of any excess stuff that's created because of wakefulness that breaks down the body, gets rid of it and disposes of it. And I heard this wonderful podcast that was a great example of the importance of sleep. So if you think of Disney World, right? I mean, they put on a show and they are a well-oiled machine. And when the door closes at 8 o'clock or whenever they close, that doesn't mean that place shuts down, because they have people who are working the night shift to prepare for and be ready for the influx of people that happen during the day. That process does not shut down. They've got a whole behind the scenes activity going on so that the rides and everything is stocked and everything is easy and simple and can follow through with the processes. That is what's happening when your brain is sleeping. It is clearing things out and it is preparing for you to be your best right? To have your best executive function, your best experience in life to do what you are meant to do. So when you're not sleeping, this isn't happening, right? And so that's where I'm think everybody should really assess their sleep routine and their sleep pattern and look at how can we all do better. So let's talk about the sleep basics. Number one, is your room dark? So we know that light is hugely important for circadian rhythms. Light in the morning is triggering our body for alertness, awakeness. Likewise, when it gets dark outside, that's triggering our body to get sleepy, right? We've got that homeostatic pressure where the balloon is full, and that's triggering us to get tired and start winding down. So if we are sleeping in a room that does not get dark, then that does not necessarily equate to healthy, good, rich sleep. Is your room cool? Actually, they say the sweet spot is 65 degrees. I heard 68, but 65. So when it is hot and stuffy, if you were sweating at night, that does not necessarily support healthy sleep. Is your bedroom cluttered or is it distraction free? You know, if you are in a space where it feels clean and everything is organized, I think your environment reflects the internal environment. So if you're feeling that things are messy and chaotic on the outside, that is a direct mirror of what's happening internally, and it's really hard to be at a state to let sleep take place. Is your phone in your bedroom? I think there's many reasons why I wouldn't want your phone in your bedroom, but number one, your phone can buzz or vibrate, and that can constantly be waking you up. And your phone can light up. So if that screen is lighting up, or if you have, you can look at the patterns that are created in our brain just by looking at a phone. Like we look at a phone, we automatically just want to grab it and look. That is a pattern that is routinized in our brain and in our neurology because of habits that have been created having it there. So I would say, number one, we don't want phones in our bedroom because of the potential for distractions or interruptions, the potential for light exposure, and the unnecessary electromagnetic field or radiation that it's, sending to us. And then, do you know your sleep data? And this is interesting. So there's many apps available to really see how you're sleeping, if you're waking up. And this doc who wrote this sleep prescription, he said, we can get really anxious and have anxiety around our lack of sleep or how frequently we're waking up. So it's not necessarily a good thing to have all these sleep apps or sleep devices to really track our sleeping. You can have anxiety around not sleeping and what's keeping you up. And then, just have this internal dialogue. So he wasn't necessarily a big supporter of those things. And really identifying what is your sleep routine. So you ever hear about, a nutritionist who says, well, let's keep a food journal. Here you can start keeping a sleep journal or a sleep diary to really track, okay, when am I going to sleep? How long am I sleeping? How am I supporting, or how are you supporting your best sleep at night? So sleep tip number one, wake up at the same time every day. And this doc, he didn't care if you're a morning person, you wake up at 6, you wake up at 10 a.m. Keep it consistent. Again, I want you to think about your rhythms. You need to have a consistent rhythm. The more consistent you are with your rhythm, again, you're going to have those healthy triggers between that homeostatic pressure and the circadian rhythm. So if you're waking up at the same time every day, so if it's 8 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock. If you sleep in for another 15, 20 minutes, probably not going to be a big deal. But if you're sleeping in for, an hour to 2 hours, and then you're staying up late on the weeknights, just really doesn't support having a healthy rhythm of sleep. Secondly, sleep tip number 2, light. So you need exposure to light right away in the morning. So whenever you wake up, it's the same time every day. But you want to get outside for 2 to 3 minutes, and you want light exposure. It's harder in the winter months, so they do make alarm clocks, or they make lights that mimic the sun. But you do want to make sure you're getting 2 to 3 minutes of light right away in the morning every day. 3, caffeine's half-life, meaning if you consume it, how long does it take for half of it to be out of your system? So caffeine's half-life is 5 hours. So it takes 10 hours for your system to totally get rid of it. Again, caffeine is fighting for adenosine, those receptors in the brain. And when adenosine isn't dropping, that's not signaling you to go into a sleepiness. And so I would stop caffeine consumption at 2 p.m. Or depending on when you go to bed. If you're drinking coffee at night, or if you're drinking any type of caffeinated beverage, that has an impact, and it will impact your ability to get into that sleep rhythm and experience really healthy and rich sleep. Oh, I missed number 4. Went from 3 to 4. Okay, sleep tip number 5, stop your screen time at least 2 hours before bed. You can reduce your artificial light exposure, which interferes with your body's rhythm. And again, you look at what are the external factors. We are in a society who can work all day, all night. There's always going to be emails to answer. There's always going to be work there. And we just don't ever stop. And so I find that when we stop our screen time, whether it's iPhones or phones, TV, it really shifts us into having more awareness of our body cues and our body triggers. Maybe doing different activities. Maybe we're reading or journaling. Maybe we're in good conversation with, the people we are living with. But I would say if you can stop screen time 2 hours before, you're going to experience something different. I think that's my last slide there. I think I considered my sleep tips, these sleep basics, as tip number 1. And in our flyer, I said, well, what's the chiropractic connection? I hope when you're hearing, just the importance of sleep, there's a lot of talk around the brain. One thing I hear from a lot of people is when they start getting adjusted, they start noticing they sleep better. When you are getting your adjustment, it's taking stress off of the brain, taking stress off of your nervous system. It's allowing for better reserve and resiliency to handle and adapt to stress. It's reconnecting your brain and body to be able to just experience life better. And so I do think there's a component when your brain has less stress, it's more open to the choices and things that you are making, more open to healthier choices. And maybe you can think more clearly to, do some of these things that we talked about in terms of sleep. There's times where I've been totally exhausted and I get adjusted and I feel like, wow, I feel like I just got 8 hours of sleep. It literally is a natural way to take stress off the brain to allow for you to do the things you need to do. But again, it doesn't take over for sleep, which is vitally important. So I think chiropractic plays a main role in everyone's health care. It's just going to help support all the things you're doing in terms of health. So my hope is, and if you're online on Zoom, I ask that maybe you look at what is your takeaway? What is the one thing you can do to improve your sleep? and identifying why is it important, right? I shared a lot of things, but the things you choose to do are changing the trajectory you are on, things you do now. You know, what will you do in your 30s is setting you up for what happens in your 40s, 50s, 60s. It's hard to think of that long term, depending on where we are in life, but what you're choosing to do now is really setting you up for what the next 10, 20, 30 years look like. And if you really address your sleep and get improved sleep and healthy sleep, get into a rhythm and really choose to be disciplined in the time you wake up and how you're consuming, you know, your liquids, if it is caffeine, it'll make a massive difference down the road, and you'll experience life very differently day in and day out. You'll be a different person, right? You can always pick somebody out. You're like, you didn't get very good sleep last night, right? Not necessarily pleasant to be around. If they're not pleasant to be around, imagine what they feel like themselves. So thank you for being here. I would love to hear your takeaways. So for you in the office, you can share that with me when we go off of Zoom. And then when you come into the office, please share the thing that you're going to start doing. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you all who are committed to making some change in your health. I always start off with a lot of people, many people are doing lots of different things on a Tuesday night. And you guys are here learning about sleep and circadian rhythms and sleep tips for a half an hour tonight. So I think that's really honorable, and we are so appreciative that you're a part of our practice. So thank you for being here, Dr. Miaken of Monarch Family Chiropractic, and we'll see you guys next week.
Okay. Do you have any about taking a nap?